The dry Texas wind tore through the small town of Rivercross like a hungry predator, tossing Lily Lawson's chestnut hair across her face as whispers followed her down the dusty main street. It was 1876, and in this frontier settlement where survival depended on strong backs and plentiful children, Lily's 4 years of childless marriage had made her an object of pity, scorn, and superstition. "Poor Ethan Lawson," Martha Wilkins muttered loud enough for Lily to hear as she passed the general store. "Married to a barren woman, should have chosen differently." Lily clutched her basket tighter, her knuckles white against the woven reeds. At 24, she'd endured the whispers long enough to develop calluses on her heart, but some days the wounds felt fresh again. She kept her eyes forward, focused on finishing her errands before returning to the isolated farmhouse she shared with her increasingly distant husband. Ethan had been kind once. When they'd married at 20, they'd been full of dreams about the family they would build together. Now he spent more time at the saloon than at home, leaving Lily to manage their struggling farm alone. The drought that had gripped the region for 2 seasons hadn't helped matters, turning their hopes as dry and brittle as the parched earth. As Lily approached Hoffman's Mercantile, she noticed a commotion near the livery stable. A group had gathered around a tall stranger who'd just ridden into town. Even from a distance, there was something commanding about him. He sat straight in his saddle, his broad shoulders squared beneath a dust-covered coat. When he removed his hat to wipe his brow, the sun caught in his golden-brown hair. Lily tried not to stare as she entered the store, but she felt drawn to the stranger in a way she couldn't explain. Something about his presence disrupted the stagnant air of Rivercross, like the first gust of a coming storm. "Afternoon, Mrs. Lawson," Mr. Hoffman greeted her with his usual mix of politeness and pity. "What can I get for you today?" "Just the usual supplies, Mr. Hoffman. And some coffee if you have it." As she waited for her items, Lily overheard 2 women gossiping by the fabric bolts. "They say he's looking to buy the old Davidson place," one whispered. "A single man with that much money must be running from something." "Well, Yancy Valero is his name, according to Sheriff Miller. Came all the way from Colorado." Lily tried to appear uninterested, but her ears caught every word. The Davidson property bordered her own farm. If this stranger purchased it, they would be neighbors. After paying for her supplies, Lily stepped back onto the wooden sidewalk. The stranger, Yancy Valero, was now tying his horse outside the land office across the street. Up close, she could see he was younger than she'd first thought, perhaps 28 or 29. His face was tanned from the sun, with lines at the corners of his eyes that suggested he smiled easily, though his expression now was serious as he spoke with Mr. Davidson. Their eyes met briefly across the dusty street, and Lily felt a jolt of something unfamiliar, not quite recognition, but a sense of possibility that had long been absent from her life. She quickly looked away, embarrassed by her reaction. She was a married woman, after all, even if her marriage had become more obligation than partnership. The ride home was lonely as always, but somehow the weight on Lily's shoulders felt different. She found herself wondering about Yancy Valero and what had brought him to this unforgiving corner of Texas. The farmhouse came into view, its weathered boards and sagging porch a testament to dreams deferred. No smoke rose from the chimney, which meant Ethan was still in town. Lily wasn't surprised. She unloaded her supplies and began preparing dinner anyway, determined to maintain some semblance of normalcy. As dusk settled over the land, Lily sat alone at the kitchen table, picking at her food. When she heard hoofbeats approaching, she assumed it was Ethan, finally returning home. But the rhythm was wrong, too measured, too sober. A knock at the door startled her. Visitors were rare, especially after sunset. Grabbing her shotgun from beside the door, a necessary precaution for a woman often alone on the frontier, Lily called out, "Who's there?" "Name's Yancy Valero, madam. Sorry to disturb you at this hour. My horse threw a shoe about a mile back. Saw your light and hoped I might trouble you for some water." Lily hesitated, then cracked open the door, keeping the shotgun visible. The stranger from town stood on her porch, hat in hand, his horse looking worn behind him. "Mr. Valero, I saw you in town earlier." She lowered the gun slightly but kept it ready. "Where are you headed?" "The Davidson place." He offered a tired smile that transformed his face, crinkling those sun-weathered eyes. "Just purchased it this afternoon. I was heading out to have a proper look before dark, but it seems my journey got cut short." There was something disarming about his directness. Lily found herself stepping back from the door. "I can spare some water for you and your horse." "Much obliged, Mrs. Lawson." Lily Lawson. As Yancy tended to his horse, Lily fetched water from the well. When she returned, she found him examining her struggling vegetable garden with interest. "You've got good land here," he commented. "But this soil needs more than just water. It needs life put back into it." Something about his observation struck Lily. Everyone else looked at her farm and saw failure. This stranger saw potential. "My husband and I haven't had much luck these past seasons," she admitted. "Is he around?" "Your husband? In town. He'll be back." She trailed off, unwilling to admit she had no idea when Ethan would return. Yancy nodded, not pressing further. "Well, Mrs. Lawson, I won't impose on your hospitality any longer. I appreciate the water." "You can't walk all the way to the Davidson place in the dark," Lily said before she could reconsider. "There's a shed out back. You can shelter there tonight and head out at first light." Surprise registered on his face, followed by genuine gratitude. "That's mighty kind of you." After settling Yancy in the shed with a blanket and some bread, Lily returned to the house, strangely energized by the unexpected encounter. She told herself she was simply being neighborly, but she couldn't deny the spark of interest she felt toward this stranger with kind eyes and capable hands. Ethan didn't return that night. By morning, Lily had resigned herself to his absence, as she had so many times before. When she went to check on her guest, she found Yancy already awake and repairing a broken hinge on the shed door. "You didn't have to do that," she said, offering him a cup of coffee. "Least I could do for your kindness." He accepted the cup with a nod. "Your husband's still not back?" Lily's smile tightened. "No, but that's not unusual these days." Something in Yancy's expression told her he understood more than she was saying, but he simply sipped his coffee and changed the subject. "I should get moving if I want to reach my property by midday. Would you be willing to point me in the right direction?" "I can do better than that." "I can show you. Your land borders mine to the west." The decision to accompany him came spontaneously, but Lily didn't regret it. She needed a break from the emptiness of the farmhouse, and there was something about Yancy Valero that made her feel more alive than she had in years. They set out on horseback, Lily leading the way through her property toward the boundary with the Davidson land. As they rode, Yancy asked thoughtful questions about the area, about water sources, soil conditions, and neighboring farms. Lily found herself opening up, sharing knowledge she'd accumulated over years of working the land. "You know a lot about farming for someone who just arrived," she observed. Yancy smiled. "Had a ranch in Colorado, smaller than this, but enough to teach me what works and what doesn't." "What brought you to Texas?" A shadow crossed his face. "Needed a change, lost my wife 2 years ago, Caroline. Influenza took her quick." He cleared his throat. "Everywhere I looked I saw her, figured new land might help me start again." Lily felt a pang of sympathy. I'm sorry for your loss. Thank you. He looked at her directly. What about you? How long have you been in Rivercross? 4 years. Since I married Ethan. He inherited this land from his father. And before that, I grew up in St. Louis. My father was a school teacher. When he died, I had few options. Ethan had come east looking for a bride. He promised me adventure. She laughed softly. I suppose I got that at least. They reached the boundary of her property, marked by a small creek now barely flowing due to the drought. Beyond it stretched the Davidson land, rolling hills with good grazing potential and a small, dilapidated house in the distance. There it is, Lily said. Your new home. Yancy surveyed the property, his expression thoughtful. Needs work, but it has good bones. Like my farm, Lily said quietly. Exactly like that. His eyes met hers, and for a moment they shared an understanding that went beyond words. The sound of approaching hoofbeats broke the spell. Lily turned to see Ethan riding toward them, his face dark with anger. She felt her stomach clench. Who the hell is this? Ethan demanded as he reached them, his words slightly slurred despite the early hour. Ethan, this is Mr. Valero. He's purchased the Davidson property. His horse threw a shoe near our farm last night, and I'm showing him to his land. Ethan's bloodshot eyes narrowed. Mighty neighborly of you, wife. Too bad you weren't home attending to your actual responsibilities. Lily flinched at his tone. The chores are done, Ethan. Yancy straightened in his saddle. Mr. Lawson, your wife has been nothing but proper and helpful. You have my thanks for her assistance. Didn't ask for your opinion, stranger. Ethan spat on the ground. Lily, get home now. We'll discuss this later. The threat in his voice was unmistakable. Lily felt a flush of shame that Yancy was witnessing this, but she had no choice. I should go, she said quietly to Yancy. You can follow the creek to reach your property. Lily, Yancy began, concern evident in his voice. It's fine, she insisted, avoiding his eyes. Welcome to Rivercross, Mr. Valero. The ride home with Ethan was silent and tense. Once they reached the farmhouse, his temper exploded. He didn't hit her, he never had, but his words cut deep. Making a fool of me in front of the whole town, he ranted. First you can't give me children, and now you're running around with strangers. I was being neighborly, Lily defended herself. And where were you all night? The saloon again. At least I can find comfort somewhere, since my wife is as barren as this God-forsaken land. The familiar accusation stung like salt in an open wound. That's not fair, Ethan. We both know it takes two to make a child. His face darkened. Everyone knows the problem is with you. My sister has 5 healthy children. My brother has 3. It's your cursed womb that's the issue. The cruelty of his words left Lily speechless. They'd had variations of this argument before, but never had he been so direct in his condemnation. She realized with sudden clarity that whatever love had existed between them had withered completely, like crops in the relentless Texas sun. I think you should go, she said quietly. Stay in town tonight. We both need time to think. To her surprise, Ethan didn't argue. He grabbed a few belongings and left without another word, the door slamming behind him. Alone again, Lily sank into a chair and finally allowed herself to cry. Not just for today's humiliation, but for all the dreams that had died slowly over the past 4 years. The next week passed in uncomfortable silence. Ethan returned the following day, subdued and hungover. They moved around each other like ghosts, speaking only when necessary. Lily threw herself into farm work, finding solace in physical labor that left her too exhausted to think. She didn't see Yancy during that time, though she often found herself looking toward the western boundary of their property, wondering how he was settling in. Part of her was embarrassed about their last encounter, but another part desperately wanted to see a friendly face. On Saturday, Lily went into town for supplies. As she tied her horse outside the mercantile, she noticed Martha Wilkins and her friends watching her, their heads close together in conspiratorial whispers. One laughed outright when she passed, not bothering to lower her voice. Poor barren Lily. Did you hear Ethan's been spending time with the widow Jones? Can't blame him for seeking out a woman who might actually give him children. Lily froze, the words hitting her like physical blows. The widow Jones had arrived in Rivercross just a month ago, young, pretty, and according to gossip, already mother to 2 children from her previous marriage, Mrs. Lawson. The deep voice startled her. Yancy stood nearby, concern evident in his expression. He'd clearly overheard the women's cruel comments. "Mr. Valero," she acknowledged, fighting to keep her voice steady. "How are you finding your new property? It has potential." His eyes remained on hers, seeing past her attempt at normalcy. "Would you walk with me? I could use some advice about supplies." Grateful for the escape, Lily nodded. They walked away from the gossiping women, Yancy deliberately positioning himself between Lily and their stares. "Thank you," she said quietly when they were out of earshot. "No need for thanks." "Those women should be ashamed." His jaw tightened. "I've never understood the cruelty people are capable of. They've been whispering about me for years. I should be used to it by now. No one should have to get used to being treated that way." He paused, then added, "I've been meaning to come by and thank you properly for your help the other day, and to apologize for causing trouble between you and your husband." "You didn't cause anything that wasn't already there," Lily admitted. "Ethan and I. We haven't been truly married in a long time, not in the ways that matter." The confession should have embarrassed her, but instead, it felt liberating to speak the truth aloud. Yancy considered her words carefully. "I understand more than you might think. Before Caroline got sick, things between us had grown complicated. I loved her, but sometimes love isn't enough when life doesn't turn out as planned." Their eyes met in shared understanding, and Lily felt a dangerous warmth spreading through her chest. She knew she should step away, end this conversation before it led somewhere impossible, but for the first time in years she felt truly seen. "I should finish my errands," she said reluctantly. "Of course." Yancy hesitated, then added, "I'm having trouble with my well. The water's silty." "I remember you mentioned your husband fixed yours last spring. I'd be grateful for any advice." It was a transparent excuse to see her again, but Lily found herself nodding. "I could come by tomorrow, show you what we did. I'd appreciate that." As they parted ways, Lily told herself she was simply being neighborly. But the flutter in her stomach suggested something far more complicated. That evening, when Ethan returned home smelling of whiskey and cheap perfume, Lily confronted him about the widow Jones. To her surprise, he didn't deny it. "At least she can give a man children," he slurred. "What good are you to me anymore?" The words should have devastated her, but instead, Lily felt oddly calm. "Is that what you want, Ethan, to be free of me?" He stared at her, momentarily stunned by her directness. "What I want is a real wife, not some barren disappointment." "Then perhaps we should consider ending this marriage," Lily said quietly. "Neither of us is happy. You clearly want children I haven't been able to give you. Maybe the widow Jones can." Ethan's expression shifted from anger to calculation. "Divorce isn't simple, and what would you do, a woman alone?" "I'd manage the farm," he laughed bitterly. "This land is mine, you'd have nothing." The reality of her situation hit Lily like cold water. In her momentary courage, she'd forgotten the practical considerations. As a divorced woman, she would have few rights and fewer prospects. "I see," she said quietly. "Then I suppose we continue as we are." Ethan studied her, then nodded, seemingly satisfied that he'd put her in her place. "I'm staying in town tonight. Don't wait up." After he left, Lily sat alone at the kitchen table, facing the stark reality of her life. She was trapped by law, by custom, by economics. For the first time, she allowed herself to imagine a different future, one where she wasn't defined by her inability to bear children or her failing marriage. When she rode to Yancy's property the next day, she told herself it was only to help with his well. But deep down, she knew she was seeking something more, a connection, a possibility, a breath of fresh air in her stifling existence. Yancy was working on the roof of his small house when she arrived, hammering down loose shingles. He climbed down quickly when he saw her, a genuine smile lighting his face. "You came," he said, as if he'd half expected her to change her mind. "I said I would." Lily dismounted. "Show me this troublesome well of yours." They spent the afternoon working side by side, clearing debris from the well and devising a filtration system using layered cloth and gravel. It was hard work, but Lily found herself enjoying it, especially the easy conversation that flowed between them. Yancy told her about his plans for the property, raising cattle primarily, but also growing enough crops to be self-sufficient. Lily shared her knowledge of the local soil and weather patterns, information she'd gathered through years of careful observation. As the sun began to set, Yancy insisted on feeding her before she rode home. His cooking was simple but surprisingly good: beans and cornbread with dried apple slices for dessert. "You're a man of many talents," Lily observed as they ate at his rough-hewn table. "Necessity," he shrugged. "Been on my own for 2 years now. You mentioned your wife, Caroline. Were you together long?" "7 years. Married young, just 19. She was 18. His expression softened with memory. "She wanted children desperately. We tried for years without success." The revelation stunned Lily. "You too," Yancy nodded. "Doctors said the problem was likely with me after an illness I had as a boy. Caroline was heartbroken, but she stayed, said we'd find other ways to fill our lives. She sounds remarkable." "She was." He looked at Lily directly. "That's why I recognized the cruelty of those women in town. I've heard those whispers before, seen that pain in someone I loved." Lily felt tears threatening and blinked them away. "Everyone assumes it's my fault. The woman is always blamed. People believe what's convenient," Yancy said quietly. "Doesn't make it true." In that moment, something shifted between them, a deepening of understanding, a recognition of shared pain. When their hands briefly touched across the table, neither pulled away immediately. "I should head back," Lily said finally, reluctant but aware of propriety. "It's getting dark. Let me ride with you, at least partway," Yancy offered. "These trails can be treacherous after sunset." She should have refused, but she found herself nodding. They rode in comfortable silence, the setting sun painting the landscape in gold and crimson. At the creek that marked the boundary between their properties, they paused. "Thank you for today," Yancy said. "Not just for the help with the well." "I enjoyed it," Lily admitted. "It's been a long time since I felt useful, valued." "You're both those things and more, Lily Lawson." The way he said her name made her heart skip. She knew she was treading dangerous ground, developing feelings for this man when she was still bound to another. But in that moment, as the last rays of sunlight gilded his face, she couldn't bring herself to regret it. "Good night, Yancy," she said softly, urging her horse forward before she could do something truly reckless, like lean over and kiss him. "Good night, Lily," he called after her. "Remember what I said. The problem isn't always where people think it is." His words stayed with her as she rode home, sparking a realization that had been forming slowly in her mind. What if Ethan wasn't the victim of her barren state? What if, like Yancy, the issue lay with him? It would explain his sister's and brother's fertility while their union remained childless. The thought was oddly liberating. Not because it shifted blame. Lily had experienced enough pain to never wish that on anyone, but because it challenged the narrative that had defined her existence for years. She wasn't cursed or broken. She was simply a woman who hadn't yet had the chance to become a mother. Over the next weeks, Lily found herself drawn to Yancy's property with increasing frequency. Always with legitimate reasons, bringing seeds better suited to the local soil, helping repair fencing, sharing knowledge about the approaching winter. Ethan, increasingly absent and entangled with the widow Jones, hardly seemed to notice or care about her comings and goings. With each visit, the connection between Lily and Yancy deepened. They shared stories of their pasts, their dreams, their disappointments. She learned that beneath his capable exterior was a man of surprising gentleness and depth. He discovered her quick mind, her resilience, her unexpected humor. Both recognized the impossibility of their situation. Lily was married, trapped in a loveless union by law and circumstance. Yet they couldn't deny the growing feelings between them, the sense that they'd found in each other something rare and precious. One crisp November afternoon, as they worked together harvesting the last of Yancy's modest vegetable garden, their hands brushed. Instead of pulling away, Yancy gently captured her fingers in his. "Lily," he said, his voice rough with emotion, "I can't keep pretending. I'm falling in love with you." She should have withdrawn her hand, reminded him of her marriage vows, maintained the pretense that they were merely neighbors. Instead, she found herself stepping closer. "I feel the same," she whispered, "but you know it's impossible." "Is it?" His eyes held hers. "Your husband has all but abandoned you. He's publicly courting another woman. Even so, divorce would leave me with nothing. I'd have no home, no means of support. You could have a home with me." The words tumbled out as if he'd been holding them back for weeks. "I know it's too soon. I know there are obstacles, but I need you to know that's what I want. A life with you, Lily." Overwhelmed, Lily did the only thing her heart would allow. She leaned forward and kissed him. It was her first act of true infidelity, yet it felt like the most honest thing she'd done in years. His arms wrapped around her, strong and gentle, holding her as if she were something precious. When they finally parted, breathless and shaken, Lily pressed her forehead against his chest. "I don't know how to make this work, Yancy, but I want to try. Then we'll find a way," he promised. "Together." That night, as Lily prepared for bed in her empty house, she heard hoofbeats approaching. Assuming it was Ethan finally returning home, she steeled herself for another confrontation. But when she opened the door, she found Sheriff Miller instead, his expression grave. "Mrs. Lawson, I'm afraid I have difficult news. Your husband was involved in an altercation at the saloon this evening." Fear gripped her. "Is he hurt?" "I'm sorry, madam. He didn't survive." Pulled a knife on Jacob Turner over some gambling debts. Turner shot him in self-defense. Dr. Prescott did what he could, but the wound was too severe. The world seemed to tilt beneath Lily's feet. She gripped the doorframe, trying to process what she was hearing. Ethan dead. Their troubled marriage ended not by divorce but by violence. "I'll need you to come identify the body," the sheriff continued gently. "And there are arrangements to be made." Numb with shock, Lily nodded. The following days passed in a blur of duties and decisions. She identified Ethan's body, arranged for a simple burial, and received the condolences of neighbors who had gossiped about her for years. Through it all, she felt oddly detached, as if watching someone else go through the motions of widowhood. Yancy kept a respectful distance during the funeral but came to her farm the following day, concern etched on his features. "How are you holding up?" "I don't know," Lily admitted, letting him in. "I feel guilty for not grieving more deeply, but our marriage had died long before he did." "You don't need to explain that to me." Yancy took her hands in his. "I just want to know if there's anything you need." What she needed most was time to process her sudden freedom, time to consider what came next, time to ensure that her growing feelings for Yancy weren't simply a reaction to years of unhappiness. "I need to stand on my own for a while," she told him honestly. "Not because I don't care for you, but because I need to know who I am without Ethan before I can be with anyone else." Though clearly disappointed, Yancy nodded. "I understand. I'll wait, Lily. However long you need." Winter settled over Rivercross, bringing with it snow and isolation. Lily used the time to reflect and rebuild. She discovered that, contrary to Ethan's claims, the farm legally belonged to both of them, meaning she now owned it outright. With careful management and help from neighbors, she kept the property running through the cold months. Yancy respected her request for space, but found small ways to show his support, clearing her road after heavy snows, ensuring she had enough firewood, occasionally leaving supplies on her porch. They exchanged letters, getting to know each other through written words when propriety kept them physically apart. By spring, Lily felt renewed. The weight of her failed marriage had lifted, leaving her free to imagine a future on her own terms. When the first wildflowers appeared, she rode to Yancy's property, her heart light with anticipation. She found him mending fences, his sleeves rolled up in the warm April sun. When he saw her, his face broke into a smile that made her breath catch. "I was beginning to think you'd forgotten the way," he teased gently. "Never," she replied, dismounting. "I just needed time. And now I'm ready." She stepped closer, taking his work-roughened hands in hers. "Ready to see where this leads if you still want that." His answer was to pull her into his arms, kissing her with all the pent-up emotion of months apart. When they finally separated, both were breathless and laughing. "Is that a yes?" Lily asked, her eyes shining. "That's a definite yes," Yancy confirmed. "I love you, Lily Lawson. Have since the moment you pointed that shotgun at me on your porch." Their courtship progressed quickly after that. By summer, Yancy had proposed, offering a simple silver ring that had belonged to his mother. They married in August, a small ceremony attended by the few friends they'd made in Rivercross. To Lily's surprise, even some of the women who had whispered about her barrenness came, offering genuine congratulations. "They're calling it a romance for the ages," Martha Wilkins told Lily at the small reception. "The cursed widow and the lonesome cowboy finding happiness together." Lily merely smiled, no longer bothered by the town's gossip. She and Yancy knew the truth of their relationship, built on understanding, respect, and a love that had grown steadily through shared work and honest conversation. They decided to live on Yancy's property, which had better water access, but maintained Lily's farm as well, gradually connecting the two pieces of land into one larger operation. Together, they created something neither could have managed alone: a thriving cattle ranch with sustainable crops, and most importantly, a home filled with laughter and love. Though neither spoke of it often, both carried the private sorrow of believing they couldn't have children. They discussed adoption, planning to travel to San Antonio in the spring to inquire at the orphanage there. But life, as it often does, had other plans. 6 months after their wedding, Lily missed her monthly course. Then again the next month. By the 3rd month, when her dresses began to feel tight around the middle, she could no longer deny the impossible. When she finally gathered the courage to tell Yancy, his reaction was one of stunned disbelief followed by cautious joy. "Are you certain?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "As certain as I can be without a doctor's confirmation," Lily replied. "I never thought, with Ethan." "Nor I with Caroline," Yancy said, his eyes wide with wonder. "But perhaps." Perhaps we were never the problem, Lily finished for him. Perhaps we just needed the right person. The town's reaction to Lily's pregnancy was predictably dramatic. The women who had labeled her cursed now called it a miracle. Some whispered that it proved Ethan had been the barren one all along. Others suggested more supernatural explanations, that Yancy Valero had some special power, or that true love had broken an evil spell. Lily ignored the gossip, focusing instead on the incredible changes happening within her body. After years of believing motherhood would never be hers, each flutter of movement, each physical discomfort was a gift to be cherished. Yancy became even more protective, insisting she rest and hiring help for the farm work she could no longer safely do. He read every book on childbirth he could find, consulted with the town's midwife, and constructed a cradle with his own hands, carving tiny stars and moons into the headboard. On a warm June evening in 1878, after 18 hours of labor, Lily gave birth to a healthy baby girl. Exhausted but triumphant, she watched as the midwife placed the squalling infant in Yancy's trembling arms. "She's perfect," he whispered, tears streaming unashamedly down his face as he cradled their daughter. "Look what we did, Lily. Look what we made." In that moment, as Yancy held their baby with a mixture of terror and adoration, Lily felt the final pieces of her heart heal. This was what she had always wanted, not just a child, but a family built on love and mutual respect. They named her Hope, a testament to the one thing they had never completely surrendered, even in their darkest moments. And as Yancy brought the baby to Lily's waiting arms, she knew with certainty that the whispers and judgments of Rivercross no longer mattered. She had found her place in the world not as Ethan's barren wife, but as Lily Valero, mother, wife, and partner. "They'll have to find something new to gossip about now," Yancy said, sitting beside her on the bed, his arm protectively around her shoulders. "Let them talk," Lily replied, smiling down at their daughter's perfect face. "We know the truth. Sometimes curses are just waiting for the right moment to become blessings." 2 years later, when Lily gave birth to twins, a boy and a girl, the town finally stopped whispering about curses altogether. And if anyone remembered the days when they had pitied poor barren Lily Lawson, they were wise enough not to mention it in the presence of Yancy Valero, who would proudly tell anyone who would listen about his extraordinary wife and their 3 beautiful children. In the end, it wasn't a miracle or magic that had changed Lily's fate. It was finding the right partner, someone who saw her value beyond her ability to bear children, who loved her completely for exactly who she was. And in that love, they had created a family neither had believed possible, proving that sometimes the greatest acts of creation begin with faith in each other.